All right, three.
Hello and welcome to the next episode. We're on podcast number 41. My name is Dan Hennon, joined here with Greg Fernandez Jr., the author of the book, The Gray Stage. The Gray Stage. If you get the book, I wrote the foreword to it. Greg wrote the rest. We're going through it, reading it basically as an audible book. We're on chapter 16 of the book. For those of you following along, once again, this is episode number 41. We'll be starting today, Greg, on page 170 in the book, page 170. Once again, it's in chapter 16. Greg, this is the longest chapter in your book. It's lots of details, lots of in-depth, very good, juicy nuggets. And so we're spending extra time on this chapter.
Yeah, it was this chapter almost could be its own book. That's actually how the book started, was with this chapter. And I was going to start it here because it kind of made more sense to go through the timeline, to go through the past. But I was like, no, this book really needs to start where the cops show up and everybody looks through the
Lens.
window. Yeah, that that changed the whole format of this book. So then it was like, well, where do you put this chapter? Well, you put it last, because if they can get through everything else, then now we're going through the actual timeline here, leading up to the deaths.
Awesome. So continuing on, it starts off here on this chapter. On October 27th, 2014, David Crowley contacted David Kirk West on Facebook. Quote, "I like your operation, ethics, friends, and location. When I put together the Gray State web series and shoot nationwide, would you want to produce for the Northwest?" End quote. So that's him asking the question there. On a consistent basis, David Crowley was planning for the future of his franchise and moving forward to see his life's work become a reality. Quote, "You work consistently with Christian themes," end quote, Crowley wrote to David Kirk West. "Yeah, I guess I do," David Kirk West answered. "It's not really a conscious thing. It just sort of happens. Stick to what you believe in," David Crowley told Mr. West. "There isn't much honesty left out there," end quote. I do like that. Once again, we're getting the deep insights here as to how these guys operate. We're getting into the Christian stuff. They want the truth. It's all transparent. And that's what I like about David Crowley. Everything is transparent. They're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes.
Yeah, I thought that was good, because you have David Crowley, and there were a lot of questions early on. Is he a Christian? Is he a Muslim? Did he convert? Did his wife convert? And of course, they just said no. They were crazy, and they weren't Christian. They weren't Muslim. And these are the Gray Stage goons telling us this stuff. And then we obviously have more proof that David Crowley was a Christian up until his death.
And he's also an honest, ethical person doing the right thing. All these steps along the way here, as much as we've heard the opposite from the goons, everything here in real life is, from the evidence here, is a straight shooter individual.
That's right.
In his article, "Why I Don't Think Gray State Director David Crowley Was Assassinated," David Kirk West mentioned, quote, "some very weird, surreal, occultish stuff," end quote, written into the Gray State script he was given. "The script is interesting, to be sure," West wrote in his article. "It's a bit messy and hard to follow at times, and whether or not the movie would have been any good would have really depended on the execution, more so than most films are. But I have to at least applaud it for being different. It is far weirder and more surreal than I think anyone who saw the concept trailer would have been expecting. Though there were elements of its present, it isn't exactly the Red Dawn-esque insurgency epic that I think a lot of people were expecting. It delves into some very weird, surreal, occultish stuff. It probably could have been awesome, but it also could have devolved into an absolute mess, an interesting mess, but a mess nonetheless." David Crowley severed ties with David Kirk West on social media sometime between November and December 2014. West believes David Crowley also, quote, unfriended many people on social media, quote, for seemingly no reason, end quote. What's your thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah,
I have a point to make there, but what are your
sure.
thoughts?
I think I think this is another key thing where we see when the media, who does the media contact? Who is contacting the media after David Crowley's death? It's a lot of people that David Crowley was no longer friends with or was no longer wanting to associate with. The media never really contacted or tried to reach out to people that David Crowley was still friends with, had not broken any ties. And maybe that's not their fault. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe people who were still friends with David Crowley didn't reach out to the media. But it just seemed very strange to me that right after these deaths, uh, mostly all of the people that are being questioned, that are being asked, are people that had issues with David Crowley. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, very interesting. It'd be the same as if something happened to you or I, and it went into a news interview, and they were interviewing our enemies and to
Mhm.
get their thoughts. That's not what you want, of course. But why was that? Was that a random thing? Was that a coincidence? Was that on purpose? That's what we're getting at here in the book, because he went through his wake up, his awakening, so to say, and woke up to what was really going on. That first layer, he was waking up. He got to the next graduated layer of being awake, and said, you know what? I don't need to be following all these groups, all these people online. And so he went on some of the social media groups on Facebook and started unfollowing these groups, and said how good it felt to get that behind him and some of these friends that he didn't agree with. He was no longer out to have all these, following all these people and groups. He was doing a cleanse. He was cleansing himself from these types of people that he did not like or feel on the same wavelength with.
That's right.
In late October 2014, according to the collaborative timeline provided to authorities by David's father, brother, and sister, David gives DJ his new phone number, but no correspondence besides that, end quote. Now, once again, here, we even have to stop at that point on this paragraph. We just got done talking about people that he unfriended and people he wasn't close with. And now the authorities go to his brother, who he severed ties with, his dad that he didn't get along with, his brother or his sister that he kind of got along with, but not too much. And so they go right to them. And they don't dig into, the police don't dig into, what's the response? How do they respond to this? There's no correspondence. What's the deal? David gives DJ, that's his brother Dan Jr., his new phone number, but no correspondence. So it's not good investigating, because these are not credible folks that you're getting information with, as long as these interviews and TV interviews as well. None of it's highly credential,
It
good
seems,
stuff.
yeah.
They're not legitimate. So
One of the fascinating things about this timeline that is a collaboration of David's father, his brother, and his sister, is it doesn't add up. Even in their own timeline, there are some things that just seem to contradict each other, or they don't really add up with anything else that is found in the phone records or that is found in other places too. Just looking at the phone records too, you can see, well, okay, they called at this time, or they had this issue. Or there was one where I think somebody was saying David's brother had called him. He wanted to come over and take Rania somewhere. I know David's dad did too, but there were
to the
also some
zoo,
other
yeah.
things about David's brother. But the whole timeline was weird. It's weird that the police didn't separate the father, the brother, and the sister to get separate timelines to see if they all would add up, but they actually talked to them all at the same time, which maybe is not a big deal at that time, especially if the cops are they're not looking for anybody else, is the other thing. They're not looking for any suspects. It's not an investigation at that point, really. It's more of just kind of crossing your T's and dotting your I's. That's what it felt like.
That's what I would say. It's checking a box for the investigator to say, interview the family. Okay, sounds good. I'll get them all together, interview them, check it off. A true investigator, a true detective, looking at this through a lens of a triple homicide, should have said, Dan Jr., let's get you in a room,
Mhm.
shut the door, and ask you questions. The sister, let's get you in a room, shut the door, answer questions. And the dad, get you in a room, shut the door, and ask. Then you have a true investigation, because they would have found out very early that those stories didn't line up. The timelines didn't line up. All this good family got together and got along so well isn't going to line up, because none of that stuff was true. So that's a big point right here. On January 20th, 2015 at 2:45 p.m., Comel's friend Heidi contacted Detective Gummert by phone. Quote, Heidi advised me, wrote Gummert, that she was friends with Comel Crowley through a dietitian's network. She stated that they got together often for coffee or at times to go out for the evening, end quote. Heidi and Comel met regularly in the spring of 2014. Quote, Heidi stated in October, Gummert continued, Comel began pulling away from the relationship. She said that she quit her job at the eating disorder clinic called Melrose at Methodist Hospital, end quote. So now we get Heidi saying that the relationship was a bit strained. She started pulling away. They weren't active as much. They were very close beforehand. This is all circumstantial, essentially hearsay. It may be true, but it's putting more of a push on a spin than is probably reality.
Yeah, it's also Gummert. It's Gummert recalling this. This isn't. We're not getting actual quotes from.
It's him recalling it. So
right.
Once again,
he's summarizing it, which is fine. But as you're gonna see there, they still talk all the way up until December of 2014. So we're pulling away or not, they're still talking. They're still texting and chatting and stuff.
Correct. Even so, the two women still met in November 2014 and exchanged text messages up until December 21st of 2014 at 8:30 a.m. The last text messages between Heidi and Comel were sent to Detective Gummert. Heidi stated Comel talked about moving to California, wanting to start her own dietitian practice, opening up a business with her husband, and plans for writing a book on eating disorders. Now, this is very interesting. All very positive things, doing things with her husband, looking forward to the future, moving to California. None of the things that the Gray State goons ever mentioned at all. They said he was down, depressed, he looked small, he was losing weight, he was thin, he was unrecognizable, and he holed himself up inside of his house. Very different than a person wanting to write a book and move the family out to California and excited about the future.
Yeah, we're going to see that a lot of planning for the future here.
In early November of 2014, Dan Sr. wrote, quote, DJ texted David saying he loves him and would like to make things right. No response. Now, this may be the most important quote of this entire investigation. So they had a falling out. It's quite obvious, a huge falling out. Dan wanted to make it right, says, I love you and I want to make things right. This is a huge deal. And this is David pulling away from Dan because of something that happened with little Rania, I believe, that we never get really an answer to, but he wants to now make it right. Wanting to make it right and telling an officer or a detective that I want to make things right should have raised the antenna of the detective, right? By saying, well, wait, what? We got problems here? Was there a problem in the relationship? What caused it? And it would have led right up to this, starting in August, the falling out, October, trying to get back together, December, nothing working, and now he ends up dead. This would be huge. Looking through the lens of a homicide detective, a simple quote like this.
Yeah, and really, especially when you consider that Dan Crowley, David's brother, was probably one of the last people to show up at that house, or to at least claim to show up at the house, or to that we have any evidence that he was there at that house within a couple days of when they say the bodies were.
Leaving the gifts, dropping off things.
Right.
I mean, very, very awkward, that whole scenario. Now, in the end of bottom of 171, it goes on to say, on November 7th, Dan Sr. sent a text message to David in order to make sure his son was still alive. Now, this, very strange. The next day, according to Dan Crowley Sr., David replied that, quote, everything's great, family life had swept them away, unquote. Now, Greg, did we get those actual screenshots of this text correspondence?
No, that's all just from the timeline. So
Okay.
a lot of what you're reading is from that timeline.
Okay, so I think that the Dan Crowley Sr. text response, or David Crowley's response, is correct and accurate. Time has been busy. It swept us away. We're busy. That's totally something he would write. Dan Sr. sending the text, "Are you still alive?" That
Mhm.
to me seems orchestrated, set up, planted, revised in such a way that to make it look like he was concerned about the death, concerned about possible depression, suicide. Once again,
Mm.
it lands in that the ball court of the narrative, the official narrative. It falls right into that, which makes me really my antenna go up when I hear a quote like that.
And David's dad doesn't live that far away from him, right? You know that area. We may have to bring up. I don't know. I don't want to bring up the property address or anything, but from what I remember, it was not. From what you were saying, it's not that far.
Maybe it's 30 to 40 minutes away. It's close enough in proximity that I just see this phrase, "Are you still alive?" being inserted or planted into the narrative to line up with what they want it to look like.
Right. And we don't know if that was what Dan Sr. told the cops when he was there. Hey, I just wanted to contact him to make sure that he's not dead, or did he actually say that to David Crowley? Because we're going to hear that David's mom says something very similar too.
David's dad then asked him, "How are the negotiations going with the producers?" End quote. "I walked away from it," quote, David responded. "Reasons of the spirit, I guess." Very important here too.
Yeah.
The dad's very interested in the negotiations. Uh, not asking questions. How's the wife? How's the kids? How's the house? How's the projects going on at home? How are the negotiations? It's directed right toward money, money, money. That's his
Mhm.
interest, is how to go. I walked away from it. Reasons of the spirit, I guess. That's a big. That's a shot. That's a shot back to the dad, knowing the dad is wanting this all the way.
Interesting. I never picked up on that.
He's wanting how a parent lives vicariously through the child, whether it's sports or whatever they're getting themselves into.
Sure.
Areas that the parents sometimes failed at earlier in life, they want the child to go through that experience. So when he's dealing with these high big shot lawyers from LA, it was said earlier, to be getting this contract for big bucks, Dan Crowley Sr. loves this whole thing. You could just tell his commentary, his questions, what he's into. He gets a kick out of this whole thing, that he could have a rich son here someday. So David's response was really shutting it right in his face by saying, "No, I just walked away because money's not important to me. I'm here to live a life that I'm happy, not out to make money. I don't like material things, Dad." He was basically holding up his hand, saying, "Not up in here. That's not the way I am." That's my take on it. He's shoving it in his face and saying, "I don't live that way. I'm not material." Dan Crowley, very, very material person. David Crowley, no.
And it's kind of a double shot, because he said, when he's talking about his family life swept me, and we know what happened with David's parents and how hard that must have been. And here is David Crowley kind of pushing
Condescending.
forward two things, with a strong family and with the spirit. When he mentions the spirit, that's more evidence that he's talking about God, and specifically talking about Jesus Christ.
So it's a double whammy, I think, because I think that the dad and David butted heads. I think they were not always getting along. It was very much, I would call it a fake relationship. But this really lets them happen. I'm busy. I didn't get time to do this because I'm busy with my family. Not me, not my job, not my career. I'm busy with my family. I walked away from it for reasons of the spirit. Meaning he got the offer and he's the one who said no. So you got the other side here. He didn't say that they rejected me. They turned it away. They're going to go on to something different. He says, "I walked away from it," meaning the offer was there. I said, "No, I got other things to worry about." So huge thing. That comment is huge.
It is.
November 7th is also the date of the last text message sent from Kamel's phone at 9:26 p.m. Kamel received several calls with no originating numbers between November 12th and the 25th of 2014. The last text message from David's phone was made to Kamel on November 13th, 2014 at 1:21 p.m. By November 18th, there was no doubt as to whether or not the documentary known as Gray State: The Rise would be released for free. Quote, Gray State: The Rise, Crowley wrote on social media, will be made available online for free as soon as possible. This is our nonfiction contribution to the fight for liberty. Gather your strength. Huge comments here.
Yeah.
So first of all, Greg, what was your thoughts? I know you dove into the phone calls and the details to the phones. When they have no originating phone calls on those texts, is that a common thing? Is it not common?
Yeah, I spoke with one or two people who actually work there, and they found it kind of strange too, so that there would not be an originating number. So it could be a some type of a forwarding, something like that. But I never
Okay.
never really got a good answer. Never felt like I was able to find a good answer. So
And so he's texting with Comel. There's obviously no problems there in the marriage. They're corresponding back and forth. They're texting. He goes on then to say on social media,
yeah,
I'm going to release it for free, the whole thing, not make any money. And now the guys in the Gray State, the goons, we call them, were all about riding David Crowley's coattails, writing about hoping he makes it big so we can cash in on some of this money. Like we said before, these guys, for the most part, didn't have jobs, careers, were hanging on his coattails, waiting for something to go big. This documentary was supposed to be released for a charge that they would all help make some revenue, some money would come in. He says, I believe, my opinion is that he did not consult these guys, and says on his own, he went rogue and says, I'm going to release it for free. That did not go over well with any of these guys because they're expecting to make money on not only the movie, but the documentary.
do you
So
think
that's my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think about the timing of him putting it out there? Was he feeling some type of pressure from these goons or something, and maybe even they were working on some other deals or something like that? I feel like
I do believe that this was a tipping point here for David, knowing at this point he started to realize he was surrounded by snakes from within his own group. And so I think he sent this out there for two reasons. One is just to get it out there for the fans to know something's coming because they're waiting. And number
Yeah.
two, to kind of get a sound balloon sent out there to kind of see what the response is from the guys, because he knew they wouldn't take this good. And so he sent it out there, hit post on the published post, and it went out there. And I think that this is when the guys individually or as a group came after him and said, what are you doing? This is our project. We co-founded it. We're helping, blah, blah, blah. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this. Now you're going to release it for free on the internet without selling it as a DVD, without selling it to watch as a pay-per-view, something that would generate income. He did this, I believe, by going rogue. This was to see where everyone in the group was at, I think.
And what do you think about the actual version of it? Because we know that Sean Wright is going to contact David, really freaking out about his tax stuff still being in that.
So yes, so now you got the full version. We've got an edited version. We have a different version. Sean Wright, in particular, doesn't know which version is being released, knowing that he's implicated in a criminal activity with fraud, IRS tax fraud, on one of those versions, doesn't know which one. And the other guys, I think, come after him upset that he's just releasing it because how come we're not getting cash? Sean Wright is coming after him with specific questions pointing as to which version of this, because he doesn't want any of them released, much less the one that's going to implicate him. So this answers all of David Crowley's questions by sending this out, because now he sends it. He sits back and waits for the texts, the phone calls, the emails to come back. Now he knows what camp everybody is in. He knows who's loyal to who. At this point, he already knows there's no loyalties for him anymore. He's surrounded by snakes in this entire group, all for different reasons.
What do you think about the wording at the end there? Gather your strength. It's almost like
It is awesome. It's awesome the way David did this, because no one can get after him, because this is what he's been saying ever since from the very beginning in this whole liberty truth movement is we need to be strong and we need to beat this thing because the deep state is here. Gather your strength. And now it's also a subliminal thing by saying you better bring your big guns because I'm not being pushed over. Because I think in the past he considered himself, David, a pushover to some extent. They were kind of bullying him around. They had numbers on him within the group, and he kind of said, look, I see what's going on internally. And this social media post was to say, I'm not messing around. If something's going to happen, you better bring the big guns, because I'm not one to get pushed around, is what this statement is saying. I'm running the show here. He leaves no doubt that who's running the show. It's him. And he's releasing it for free. And for the guys, the people out there, the fans loved it. Now it's getting released. They're waiting on deliverables to come forward so they can watch and they can see. And because all they've been heard is everything's taking so much time. They're going to get it for free, which they love even more. And it's a contribution fight for liberty, which is, who's going to deny that? Who's going to make David the bad guy for that? He's now this ultimate hero by everything he says. His IQ level, he's playing 3D chess against the Gray State goons who are playing checkers, and they don't even know they're being played. They're just instant knee-jerk reaction. What are you doing? What version? What version are you releasing? Better not be my version. He's like, bring it at me, bro. Come at me, bro. It's basically what he's saying to all these guys.
Yeah, and reading that too, it's contradictory a little bit to what David's dad said, that that David walked away from it, because here we have David still talking about this is going to be the nonfiction contribution. Well, he does say it's a nonfiction contribution to the fight for liberty. So, okay, I see that. I just
it could leave room that he still walked away from the big movie deal.
It does, actually. It does. Now that I reread that, yeah, it does.
But this is some excellent stuff. And for those of you out there, the listeners, and who have the book, read this over. Read this over this couple pages a couple times just to have it sink in, because there's a lot going on here. Now, on Comel's 28th birthday, November 20th, 2014, Kate Crowley calls David's cell phone 3 times. The first call was made at 6:57 p.m. The second was 7:46 p.m. and the third 11:49 p.m. Also on November 20th, Allison sent an email to her brother asking David to call his mom and give her his new phone number. David did not respond. The following day, Allison sent an email to Comel saying, quote, do you mind telling David to get a hold of mom? She's taken to calling me every day, convinced you guys are dead, end quote. Now, Greg, this is loaded. Now you know that the family members are not talking to each other. The mom's trying to get a hold of David. They don't have the phone number. They changed the lines. They've changed the phone numbers. Here we're getting this whole narrative that they're holding themselves up in the house. They're all depressed and suicidal. But it's also David and Comel saying we're joining together and putting up the shield to these idiots, the inside circle. We got to watch what we say to who, including our family. So now it's very clear to me that they're making sure that the communication to their family is very united as one front. Yeah. Here's our phone number. That's it. Yes, we're alive. We're doing this. Other than that, stay out. It's a need-to-know basis. We're not going to tell you anything more than you need to know, because you're going through all this trauma with the Gray State goons. The family's thinking, what is going on with these guys?
Yeah, and it kind of sounds like to me, David is they're trying to work on their family. They're trying to build their family, and maybe also trying to shield their daughter from all of the family drama that they have been used to with the mom. If the mom had a drinking problem, with the dad, if the dad has his own problems too, with the brother, if he and his brother, whatever problem they had. And when you listen to the sister and the way that the sister talks to David and talks to David's wife, it's very angry. It's a very, it doesn't come off, even though these are through emails, I think, but it doesn't come off as a very family friendly conversation. The fact that, and at this time, David is not responding to his sister either. So his mom's calling him, his dad's calling him, his brother's calling him, and he's just working on his own thing. Like you said, there was something happened between him and his brother. We know that everybody was there at Ranya's birthday in August of that same year. So it must have been something between that point, I would think, Or maybe, you know what, sometimes you just bring up old stuff that happened in your past childhood and you finally want to confront the person and just deal with it. I don't know. There's so many things that could have happened, but yeah, just like Linda was saying, it's very toxic. It's the relationship was very toxic. And that is something you want to shield your children from, I would think.
So the thing is interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts on this too. It was Comel's birthday, and Kate called David 3 times. Now,
Mhm.
one could argue, is she trying to get a hold of David, or was she calling David to say, hey, put Comel on the line so
Mm.
I can wish her a happy birthday? So to
In-
me, it's you could leave a message to say happy birthday. You can contact Comel directly. She still had a phone,
Mhm.
right? Because they were
Yeah.
texting. And if she knew it, she could have just did it directly. So I think she was trying to get a hold of David. She didn't leave messages. There were just 3 missed calls. So something was urgent enough that 11:49 p.m. she's trying to reach out. Now we don't know, once again, if the mom who had a drinking problem, if this is this the way she gets? Is she drunk and she starts calling and the kids just know better that, hey, ignore mom. That's the way she is. That could be
Right.
part of it. Or there could be something that she had an intuition, I think, that something was goofy with this whole thing. Now, David staying out of all of it is almost like, look, I'm going to not answer any calls or texts with you all. I'm working on my thing over here, but I want to kind of see how you respond. Like he's sending out that thing to the Gray State Goons. He sent that out to see what's the response like. Now
Mm.
to the family, which is another separate animal altogether, I'm not going to respond at all. I'm going to wait to see how long it takes before some of them really reaches out. Someone drives up here, someone reaches out to say, hey, what's going on? Can we help you guys? But instead we get this Allison saying, what are you doing, to the wife? Why don't you just have David call the mom? She seemed upset. She didn't seem, this wasn't a loving, emotional email to say, hey, check it out. And if there's anything I can do, let me know. She was like, just tell him to call because it's really annoying me, is how it came off.
Yeah, absolutely. And David's mom didn't live that far either, right?
It was down in that same area. So she
Down in
was
the same area. So
she
maybe
was in
she
the
didn't know where
same
David lived.
Owatonna. So once
Yeah.
again, it's a 30 to 40-minute drive in another part of town than where the dad's living. They're divorced, living in the same town, different ends of the town, but both somewhat close, but still kind of a drive away. It's not something they drive in and just stop in and say, hey, how's it going? But with whatever was going on, it seemed here serious enough that the mother or father could have driven up and say, look, I just want
Yeah.
to check on you, basically a wellness check. None of it, no one did that.
No.
But the emails were flying and fingers were being pointed. And I think David says, I am done with all this. I got enough animals, things in the fryer here, things to fight.
Yeah, and I
Dealing with
just
all this.
I
And then
just
she goes, she's convinced you guys are dead.
are
Well,
dead. Right.
now that could be true. That's just Allison talking. And maybe that was, added to the story. I don't know. But we are seeing this consistent narrative of are you alive? Are you dead? I don't know.
Yeah, and I just said something wrong because I was thinking, well, maybe they didn't know where they lived, but they were all at the birthday party in August. They all know where David lives. If they really want to get a hold of him, show up to his house. If you're that scared, if you're that worried that he's dead or something like that, you would just show up. And I think at some point David's dad actually does do that. He just pops up.
Yeah, they're close enough that if this was a severity, like a Sev level 1 emergency, you would go and do it. This
Mhm.
comes off like a mid-level 1 through 10 scale that I'm nervous, I'm concerned, I don't want to drive, but I'll text. I don't want to drive up there, but I'll call.
Yeah.
Kate was working 2 jobs. She was busy and she had a boyfriend. I think she was dating at the time.
Yeah.
The dad had a job and some other things. He was always busy and he was traveling. So not to argue that you could have made a trip up there, but I don't think they were at that level yet. They just wanted to see what's going on because things were goofy and
Yeah.
they were goofy.
Which just to me makes it sound like more family drama, and David is just
Well,
thinking
this is a
this is how
bigger
the
portion.
family.
If you have a pie chart of the stress for David Crowley,
Mhm.
75% of it may have been the Gray State Goons and the guys, the producers, and the shop, but 25% of his stress was probably from his own family.
Yeah.
And he was trying to manage this conflict of all sorts. And it's obvious that the family wasn't all, 100% cohesive unit. Allison was living somewhere. The other two were out in Owatonna, and the brother was close here in the Twin Cities. So, but he wasn't getting along with any of these guys. So there were some butting heads, so to say. But I think David's answer was to just stay out of this portion of it. I'm not going to answer anything. I got stuff to do. Now, Kamel responded a few hours later at 4:14 a.m. by saying, Al, Mom was personally given both David and my new number. Given that we are, quote, italics, all well acquainted with Mom's history of forgetfulness and exaggeration of her reality and situation, I would humbly suggest not to succumbing to hasty emotional reactions over erroneous information that has no logical basis. End quote. This is huge.
Yeah.
They're getting all these emails, and Kamel says, look, I'll answer it myself. You moron. What are you doing? You have the number. They have the number. And so we can go back to that top of the page there where the previous page where David had 3 missed calls from his mother. And I had suggested maybe that, she was trying to get a hold of Kamel to wish her happy birthday. Well, we can rule that out because she had the number. It was confirmed she had the number. So Mrs. Crowley, Kate, was calling David for something different. Kamel says in a very rude tone and more somewhat superior tone by saying, here's the answer. Basically, stand down. This is very much a tone of saying, look, stand down. I hold rank over you. Quit messing around. I got things to do. This is because I think, and we've all had this with sister and brother-in-laws and whatnot. This hierarchy, this pecking order comes into play whether you like it or not in the family dynamic. And Allison, the way she talks and speaks and sends her emails and texts are coming off very grandiose, important, and I'm an authoritative figure, right? You get that, Greg?
Yep.
And Allison's do you need me to fix your guys' problems again? I guess I'll be here to be the family fixer. And Kamel writes back and says, no, you're an idiot. Get out of my way. We have it under control. Don't use emotional reactions over erroneous information that has no logical basis. Basically, it's Kamel saying, look, if you have a knee-jerk reaction over something, don't come to me. Mom, she says, has a history of forgetfulness and exaggeration of her reality and situation. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Once again, we can safely assume that, she's an alcoholic with alcoholic problems, but she does use the word situation and she's forgetful. Well, I don't know. I'd like to know that. I don't think it's got big meaning here in the big picture of things, but there was issues going on there with the family.
Yeah, my guess, and I don't know, but my guess was that it was the whole marriage, the fallout from the marriage and how everything played out. I don't know.
I do like how Kamel says that she refers to Kate as mom. Now, she could have said, look, Kate gave David all the phone numbers. She says mom did. Now, that's another key word by saying this because she is connected more so with Kate, I think, than Dan Sr., and they were connected closer. David and Kamel's relationship was closer with Kate Crowley than it was with Dan Crowley Sr. I think is what this is really pushing home the message that she says mom has the numbers. Mom has the information. She has the phone numbers. I think that's a big deal. So basically everyone has the numbers. It's not up to me. It's not my problem if they lost them or forgot what their numbers are. We gave them our updated numbers. So yes, they did change cell phones. Kamel got a new number. Dave got a new number. David. But she really goes after Allison. Now that's tough to come back from. Now we know they're murdered and gone. There's no issue here, but this would still be something that would bother these guys, I think, in a relationship for months to come. A sister-in-law reaching out like this with accusations and emails on both ends. Wow. Now, it only gets better, Greg. Here it is. Continuing on, it says, 3 hours later, Allison wrote Kamel another email trying to explain her frustrations with David. Quote, you mentioned how David wished he could have a relationship with his siblings. Allison began. I want to have a relationship with him too. I'm crazy about David. I always have been. But now I can't get a hold of him at all, and it's frustrating. It feels like he's putting up barriers, and I don't understand why. I don't know if I've done something wrong. I'm eager to make it right if I have. Is there a reason for the recent silence? Now, Greg, end quote. I do have to admit, now this is more reasonable tone. This seems to be an earnest plea to say, look, maybe I did something. To me, what this screams from Allison is that she has no clue what's going on with the Gray State, right? And that's not a problem. That's not a shot on her. She has no clue the snakes that David's fighting over here with one hand and fighting off his family with the other. She quickly says, is there something I did wrong? No, probably not. I don't think there was. But she does go out of her way to say, I love him. I'm crazy about David. Yeah. So in that family, he was, whether you call it the golden child or not, he was the deal. Dan Jr. looked up to David. Allison looked up to David. They all looked up to him because of his, whether it's your charisma or whatever it is that people mentioned. He had it. He had the it factor. They all liked him. And she wants to know about the barriers, can't get a hold of him. It's frustrating. Yes. She wants to know if she did something wrong. She wants to fix it. This is Allison's response in her small with their blinders on, right? She's got the blinders on. Did I do something wrong? If so, let's fix it. Not getting the big picture, not knowing what else he's all delving into. And she has no clue what happened with Dan Jr. I can almost guarantee you right there of whatever happened with Rania at the way back with that brought up the whole fight. She has no clue. So I think this is all just being exposed, is the fact that I'm not saying here that Allison is clueless. She's bright, has a high IQ. She's very smart, but in the big picture of what's going on in the Crowley life, she has a small lens of what's going on. And this makes it obvious that it's painful how little she knows, I think, right here. But at least it's coming off as earnest.
Yeah, and it's very curious the way that Dan Jr. and his sister, they're kind of saying the same thing. Did I do something wrong? Or I want to make it right. It goes back, what are they trying to make right? Like, what is the big issues here? And are they the same thing? And are David's brother and sister, are they having some of the conversations that siblings may have when they're like kind of bashing the other one? And maybe that's why it sounds very similar.
I could see that if I was to put on my counselor hat, so to say, it would be Allison is like, what's going on? Dan Jr. is probably calling Allison by saying, what's David's problem? What's this idiot doing? He's been so weird, all at the same time, knowing full well he did something to David that Dan Jr. does not want to let on to Allison. He does not want to open that door to make it known that he's the bad guy. He wants to get together now and gang up on David and saying, well, how come he's putting up these walls? What's his deal? Allison doesn't know what happened with Dan Jr., I don't think. And so Dan Jr. is calling and saying, we can't get a hold of him. What's going on with these folks? Allison could have also just said, look, go over there yourself. You live 10 minutes away, whatever. Allison was living in, I think, Wisconsin or something at the time. So this whole dynamic is very interesting. Looking at it through a lens of a family counseling session or a family therapy, all these people are doing things that they think are right. They don't know what's going on, but none of them have the full picture of what's going on, except I think Dan Jr., but he's pushing a different narrative to his sister, his mom, and his dad that doesn't let on to say that I'm the one who screwed it up. He can't. Whatever he did was so bad that even he hasn't let on. So he's playing all the cards here to make sure that nothing else gets exposed. I think. Interesting. Boy. Now, as of November 21st, Comel's mom had been in the hospital for 16 weeks. So now we shift here in the book, Greg, to the mother of Comel, the one who's been in the hospital. We've been spending all this time on the Crowley family. It only adds more to it. November 21st, 16. And no, it was not 6. It was 16, like the book says. That is a long time in the hospital. That same day, David's mom called him at 1:56 a.m. Once again, look at the time. What mother calls their son at 1:56 a.m.? Unless it's an emergency or if she's been drinking, whatever. All calls went directly to his voicemail. Makes sense. I did the same thing. Even if I'm there, the call comes in, you're probably going to just let it roll to voicemail. 1:56 a.m. He's going to assume that she's drunk. He's not picking up to get into a conversation with her at 2 a.m. Yeah. All calls went directly to voicemail. Kate tried to reach David 8 more times on November 21st, between 1 and 9 p.m. So Greg, I mean, that's an 8-hour span, 8 more times. So let's just do the math there. Let's say it was 1 hour. Every hour you had a missed call from your mother. After 3 the night before, at 1:56. So 1:56 and then 8 more times. So 9 times that day, missed calls, missed calls, missed calls. Went right through to voicemail. So as we can tell, he was probably fed up with all this. We know that he loved and was committed to his mother. He was connected to her, and he even let all those roll through. So if there was drinking or something else going on with whatever the situation was with her forgetfulness, I don't know what that means. I mean, I do, but I don't know what it really means.
Yeah.
And he let them all. He said, I'm done. I can't. I got to focus. You guys are driving me all nuts.
Yeah, she's calling him a lot that month, if you really look at it. So she's really wanting to get a hold of him. But to me, it is interesting that she doesn't drive over there.
I was just going to say that. Now, if you're at this level, which to me now seems like a severity, threat level orange, severe level 2, you'd want to get up and say, I'm going to get in the car and go there myself.
Yeah.
Up, back, I'll be back in an hour, hour and a half. I want to find out what's going on rather than calling 8 times. Now, if she has a drinking issue and she was drunk and she's not going to drive and make the wise choice of saying, I'm not going to drive when I'm in this situation, I applaud her for that. But
sure,
this is weird behavior.
Yeah, maybe we don't know. Maybe she didn't have a car. Maybe she didn't have access to a car at that time. Maybe she didn't have a license. We just don't know.
But it certainly sounds urgent, right? We could agree on the fact that this is urgent. 1 call every hour or whatever it was over a 8-hour span. Now, Comel responds back. It says, quote, of course there's a reason for the recent silence. Comel responded to Allison November 22nd at 7:39 a.m. We obviously don't get any form of pleasure withholding communication from our family. I don't think it was necessary for either David and I to spell it out, but this is all I choose to share. We are dealing with an endless list of deeply personal issues silently as adults, as lovers, as partners, as parents. With that said, I refuse to play mom, keyword mom. Once again, she doesn't call her Kate. I refuse to play mom's emotionally manipulating games, and I will not allow my husband's participation in such ventures. Very well written. I love the way she writes. Love it. My advice to you would be the same. 1, I'm practicing myself. Turn off your phone and don't let out-of-state calls dictate how you should be feeling or what you should be doing at any given time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kate tried calling David again on November 22nd at 11 a.m., but her son did not pick up the phone. So, Greg, what's your thoughts on that? Now she admits that there's lots of things going on with him emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, and whatever they're dealing with, and they don't make it clear. They said they're dealing with it as if there's an issue now between David and his wife, and they're trying to work through that too. So they got problems everywhere, problems with all of these different people. And so where do you start? A smart, good person would start with yourself. Okay, let me fix myself. Let me work on my issues first before I start walking around and trying to fix a problem I have with my dad, with my brother. Maybe the one thing that is all tied into this, the one common thing is me. And maybe that's how David felt, is like, I got to get my life going. And maybe with everything, this could also be why the project, the Gray State project, is kind of put on hold, because there is that point between 2013 and 2014 where everybody, it seems like there's no progress. And people are even calling it a hoax. This is all just a big hoax and everything. They were saying that in 2012 too. But so there's definitely something going on. It definitely looks like David is trying to work on himself, trying to focus on himself, focus on his family first before he gets into those other problems that he cannot control. He cannot control his parents, his brother, his sister. He can only control himself and that household. He is the head of that household. And so you want to start there. And if you can't get that in order, I can totally see why you wouldn't want to try to venture out and try to fix your relationships with your family, you want to make sure that you have a nice stable home first, and you're working on your own family. This is a new family. David was not there when his daughter was born. He missed a lot of her life. He's trying to make up for that too. So there's a lot of variables in this.
I do like how it does say that we don't get any form of pleasure withholding information. So basically she's admitting, we are withholding information and selectively giving stuff out to people. We're not being transparent because there's a lot of things going on. So
Right.
she does come out and say that, which is fair enough. That's a fair enough choice to do that. We don't want to spell it out. And there she's basically saying, look, it's so obvious that I don't think I need to spell it out.
That's a good point.
It's another condescending thing to Allison by saying, I don't think we need to spell it out. You don't get it by now. What's your problem?
Right.
That's a very condescending statement towards Allison, I think. And once again, putting herself in the authoritative top pecking order position and talking down to Allison. We're dealing with things as adults. They're going through things as adults. Yes, we're going through things as lovers. There could be issues in the bedroom. I don't know. Partners in the gray state, in the project, in going through life as partners and as parents. They're dealing with the stuff with Rania, with the things that she was going through. So they were really trying to just get able to come up for air, I think. And they're getting all these questions with trying to swim in this sea of turbulent waters. But she said, look, just don't let out-of-state calls dictate your life. Just basically, they're not that severe. Get to them when you can, but you got to focus on other things. And Allison was making all this stuff very urgent. Kate was making it all urgent. Now it says here, Kate, after trying all those phone calls on the 21st, 11 p.m. the next night, her son did not pick up the phone. Now, if I didn't hear from my mother all day after getting 8 or 9 phone calls the day before, now she waits till 11 p.m. to call again.
Yeah.
I'm assuming once again, if there's drinking involved, he's like, I don't want to go there. She's probably drunk. I'm not going to pick up. Now it says on the top of the next page, 164, it says on Monday, November 24th, 2014, 9:57 a.m., Comel sent a text message to her friend Heidi. So now we're back to Heidi. Quote, can we do a quick coffee thing today? End quote. Comel asked, I'd really like to pay you for the products and make some smoothies, but I'd also be interested in planning a more elaborate, fun get-together after the holidays. Once again, we have more evidence of David and Comel planning for the future.
Yeah, and I thought Comel was trying to distance herself from Heidi. Here she is trying to plan something with Heidi after the holidays.
So yes, so Heidi goes out of her way to the authorities to say that Comel's been really weird, distancing herself, blah, blah, blah. She's a moron. Now she says, I'd really like to pay you for the products. So they're obviously conducting business, buying and selling products.
Yeah.
She got the products. She needs to pay her back. Comel sounds like, I'm not the type of person to just, mail a check for a friend. I want to meet you in person and give you cash or write a check. There was no Venmo, whatever, back then in 2014 to do things online as easy as it is now. So she said, hey, let's get together. I'll pay you. Let's have a coffee. Let's make smoothies. Sounds to me like there's very good friends. They wanted to plan an elaborate fun to get together after the holidays. Holidays, once again, is Christmas and New Year's. So sometime in January, she wanted to get together and not do a quick and dirty event. She wanted to do an elaborate, she used the word elaborate, get together.
Fun get together.
So David and Comel are planning for the future, like you say here. Comel sounds to be busy for a while where she didn't do much with Heidi, and then she gets back to Heidi and plans this big thing. Continuing, it says Comel and Heidi met about an hour later at the Anadai Coffee House in Minneapolis, Minnesota. During their meeting, according to what Detective Gummert reported, quote, Comel again reiterated to Heidi that she was going to quit being a dietitian and open a business with David Crowley. Once again, now we're getting back into the partners. They were co-business. They were in business together. Very tough for a husband or wife to do. Some people can do it. Many cannot, but these guys were working hard to make it work. She was going so far to quit her job to be a partnership, write a book, do things with David Crowley. David Crowley stated he was working, quote, every day to complete the Gray State, The Rise. And on November 26, 2014, He told a potential donor to, quote, use that money on something you need for your girl instead. The rise is going to be free, end quote. Crowley was rushing the rise to a free online release. Quote, it'll be worth your weight. Now, what the heck? This is, I mean, now he's urgently trying to push this through. And I think, from my perspective, Greg, my opinion is that he's feeling the heat from the Gray State goons. He's feeling the heat, the pressure to say, we need to sell this. We need to make money. We need to put it online to sale. And he's like, I'm going to strike when the iron's hot, release it for free and say, whoops, I guess I'm sorry, I didn't know it. And then easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. So he's going to just get it out there quick.
Smart man.
A donor, an actual donor came to him and said, can I donate? And he had to write back and say, use that money for something for your girl instead. This is going to be free. He's essentially turning down free money, Greg.
Right.
He's turning down a donation. So we have all these quotes from the Gray State goons that David was desperate. He was in debt. He was financially bankrupt. He had to kill himself because he had nothing. Here's someone making a donation and him saying, no thanks, thanks, but no thanks. Put it towards your girlfriend. November 26, 2014 was the last day a phone call was made from David Crowley's cell phone. The call lasted 58 seconds. It was done at 6:51 a.m. or p.m. on the 26th. So now it's what? Thanksgiving?
Yep.
According to the timeline provided to police, Dan Crowley Sr. sent David Crowley text messages on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of 2014, but David did not respond. So he's hot and heavy into this. He's fighting the family thing early in the week. Later in the week now, he's dealing with the Gray State donors, and he's releasing it for free. He gets 3 text messages from his father for 3 straight days and says later that he did not respond. Now, Greg, were those confirmed? Did those go through according to evidence of the text?
You know, I forget if because this was before we got the phone records. So
they were December and January. Yes, they were December.
Yeah. So I forget if what he said lined up with those dates. Or
gotcha.
Obviously the police had the records, so they would have been able to figure that out pretty quickly if they did line up, or if they did, if they cared.
Just wanted to point out to the listeners that have maybe not listened to the earlier shows is that there is a history of Dan Crowley Sr. telling police phone calls and or texts that once the records came of the phone records on David's phones turned out to not be true. Text messages that did not come in, phone calls that were not made. So I just want to point that out. There's inconsistencies in the month of December, may or may not be the case here, but he did say, according to police, 3 days straight, he sent text messages that did not get responded. Okay, fair enough. Now we get in Wednesday, December 3rd. Heidi sent the following text message to Kamel. Quote, just curious what you thought of the greens or the collagen in the smoothie or with the gummies. End quote, question mark. 2 days later, Kamel responded, one word, amazing. Thanks for the discount and personal delivery. So this was, so for those wondering, gummies, this was 2014. So there was no CBD or gummies like we think of now, drug infused or marijuana infused gummies, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This was whatever product she bought probably had like a gummy form or maybe something.
And probably a flavor or texture to it. And so what do you think of that? It does say that Kamel didn't respond for 2 days. So they weren't too responsive on their texts.
That's a good point.
It's maybe had something to do with it, maybe didn't, but it did say that it took 2 days to respond. Most people respond and say, yep, how do you like it? Good, I liked it. But she goes on to say that thanks for the discount. No, once again, they're conducting business. They're buying and selling things. The gal liked her so much, she gave her a discount. And the personal delivery. So whatever she bought from her, the gal, Heidi, came to her home and delivered it besides. So this is December, Greg, when people were saying they locked themselves. They weren't in their home. They were in their house. They never left. They were not leaving. Here it says flat out on a text, thanks for the delivery and the discount. So Heidi had no problem, I guess, coming to the house, delivering it. That could have been maybe left on the steps. We don't know, but the delivery was made at the house. Thanks for the
Well,
discount.
I think it was the coffee shop, whatever that Aya Danan, whatever that coffee shop was. And I was going to
Okay.
ask you if you knew where that was. It
Okay.
says
I did not. I've never heard of that. I'm not sure where that is, but she says, I'd like to come and pay you. So it to me, and this could be argued differently, and maybe hopefully Heidi could come on the show once and let us know, but it sounds to me like she already got a product or ordered it. Comel wanted to meet her at the coffee shop to pay her. Then when they got there,
okay.
she said, here's what else I, sell, and the smoothies and the gummies. And Comel, I'm assuming, said, you know what, I'll take some of those too. Next time I see you, here's the money. And Heidi subsequently then dropped that off, that second order. That's what it sounds like to me. I could be wrong once again, but
Okay.
and if you're listening in, please leave a comment in the comment section, because we're just making assumptions here on what they are doing. Thanks for the discount and the personal delivery. Yeah, I don't think that was her meeting her at the coffee shop when she says personal delivery. It could. Now, the following December 9th post by David Crowley has since been removed. And this we can, depending on how much you want to get into this now or the next episode, but I'll read it here, Greg. This is the most powerful message, I think, on this whole case. December 9th. David Crowley writes, can you believe it? The rise is almost done. This is not the movie, but is this the documentary, Greg?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's almost done. I'm serious. She's coming out to be quite the looker. Can't wait to show you all, but I have to comb her hair for a few more weeks. This is December 9th. So it's a few more weeks, 14 days on to that, maybe the 23rd, 24th, Christmas time. And we know that the blank hits the fan around Christmas time. And so this is a very important note. Anyway, he goes on to say, I'm quite serious about giving this film away. I have come to abhor the AJ model of peddling DVDs as truth and cashing in on suckers. I have given this film years of my time, and I'm delighted for the opportunity to, quote, burn it down by giving it away. I hope you all share the same feeling. You'll all be given this project. You've all given this project a lot of attention, and I thank you. Soon it'll be time to go live, and we'll watch it all unfold. December 9th, 2024, on David Crowley's personal Facebook wall, he wrote this and posted it.
Yeah.
After the triple homicide murders, this post, Greg, was removed, was deleted or hidden by someone on David Crowley's Facebook wall. This is the thing that the investigators from day one should have focused on. Yep. When you get someone killed or murdered in the way that they were done, and there was nefarious activity on that person's Facebook wall after they've been murdered, who has access to that page? Who has access to their wall? Who has the password? Or who has the laptop in their possession with it already logged in and not having to log in? It was the police. So the only option for this to be removed or destroyed is someone logged in on a phone with the Facebook app logged into David Crowley, which the police had, the laptop the police had, or someone logging in remotely to his Facebook wall. In that case, they would need the username, password, credentials to get in.
Right.
As tight as David was tightening down the ship here with his friends, this family, and the inner circle of snakes, I don't think he was giving out his password and things to friends and buddies. But we know that the password was left behind in the house, the list. So whoever was in that house, according to the official narrative, there was no one. David committed all the killings himself. But the list was in the house on the desk of his passwords. Right. And we know people were in the house during and after and during the investigation and everything else. But if the police, and I mean at this level, local, state, federal, if anyone was involved from the police, not in the potential murder of the case, but involved in the cover-up, it could have been here by deleting it because this does not line up with the narrative of what was going on. So the
Absolutely.
question must be asked, did police, while this laptop was in their possession or the phone, delete this post by saying how David was so excited looking forward to the future and he can't wait to do this? And he's making fun of AJ. This is Alex Jones here for giving away DVDs.
Peddling to suckers or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah, almost like the Biden, the fake quote where they said Trump was calling the military suckers or losers and
Yes,
suckers or
yes.
something. It's all just
So
nonsense.
this is huge, Greg, and I don't know how much time you want to spend on it today or next time, but this is really the thing that's the nail, not the nail in the coffin. I don't know what I want to say, but the most important, if you're looking at this through the
Yeah.
lens of a homicide detective and you
Mhm.
find out, which we told them, we instructed and told the law enforcement people looking into this, why was a post deleted from his
Mhm.
Facebook page when the laptop was in the police possession? I'm not pointing the fingers at police. I'm saying there's also now this gives way to the fact that someone was in the house, which we would consider, not naming names, the murderers were there in the house, whether they committed the murders there, the triple homicide in the house, or if that was a secondary crime scene where the bodies were dumped. People were in that house, and his password list was sitting out.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to stop here, and we'll come back hopefully next month, early next month, and continue on. Did want to ask you one last thing though before we go about this burn it down, because David puts this in quotes. And so this also leads me to think that, like we talked about earlier, there are some people that are very upset that David is going to put this movie out there for free. And maybe somebody said, like, if you do this, you're basically burning it down. You're going to burn it down. You're going to burn down this project. What do you think about that? How he puts it in quotes here, burn it down.
I would agree with you, Greg, that there's something to that. I read it at first and it didn't
I
connect.
didn't
It
either.
didn't resonate with me as far as what that meant.
Yeah.
The younger guy, and maybe that's terminology that's currently used. I wasn't familiar with it. I don't know what it meant. It just, he's going to close up shop and wrap it up, put a bow on it and be all done and be done with it. Close the book on it. But by using the phrase burn it down in quotes, you may have a point there. That may have been said to him in a threat by one of the Gray State guys. And he used it to throw it right back in their face.
Right.
Yeah, he was done playing Mr. Nice Guy, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Because when I talked to Sean Wright, and we had talked about this, about like, okay, David wanted to give it away for free, and even Sean at that point, weeks after David's death, was still saying it's going to be put out there. He did not have any intention. Sean Wright did not have any intention of releasing this for free, which would be a dishonor to what David wanted to actually do with this film. Thankfully, it did get put out there for free later on, with things taken out, some weird edits in there and weird stuff, some South Park, some references with South Park and stuff like that, which just did not make any sense. The rough cut is the one that everybody should see. It is rough, but that is really the heart and soul, I believe, the heart and soul of what David's vision for this project was.
Yeah, very important. If you're just getting into this case, or starting to follow it, or if this is just piques your interest a little bit, get into this. That first quote, that post on his Facebook page was huge. That tells a lot. He put all his time and energy into this. He finally was going to release it. And that comment, and like you said, Greg, following on, lots of comments underneath that on that post. All of that's gone. That post is taken away, deleted, or hidden, and the comments along with it. And if those would be reactivated or activated to see, or unhidden, the comments were almost more worth it than the post itself, because that's where it got to be very eye-opening. And that could have been the reason it was hidden by someone. Not even the post. It could have been the comments, because it got pretty hairy in the comments section there, because there was some bantering going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And of course, if you get rid of a comment, people are going to see that. Everyone's going to know. If you get rid of the whole post, then you don't have to worry about people looking into why did you take your comment out, and it just
It,
raises a lot more questions.
yeah, and this is 2014. So back then, this is a big deal on Facebook. This was the way people communicated
Yeah.
back and forth for this project.
Yeah, Facebook was a big deal, and I know we want to go. I really love the way that we wrap this up right here today. I think it's a perfect place to end this. People should also know that as recently as 1 year ago, somebody still has access to David Crowley's Facebook page, and they can still make edits, and we've documented that, and we have seen that. So it's not just a theory. Oh well, somebody may have had access. Somebody had access then. That somebody still has access now.
And that, I know the case is officially closed or what have you, but that's something that today, I mean, today's Apple Valley Police Department, that should raise an eyebrow. All these years later, that someone has access to this, not only meaning that no one looked into it from the beginning, but someone still has access to that. That should be a very easy thing to with a police background, a police request from the law enforcement, to go right to Facebook and say, I want to go to this account, this person's page, who has access, what's the IP address, where is it coming from, who's posting, and where are they located, where do they live? That's an easy thing. They'll do that in 5 minutes. Facebook should be able to pull up that information. They are not even doing something as easy as a task such as that to track down this person or persons.
All right, my friend. Well, if you're able to, if schedule works out, hopefully the first week of October, which would be October 1st, that Saturday around the same time, we can do this once again.
Let's do it.
All right, my brother. Very nice chatting with you, and until next time, bye, everybody.